Hey there, Nate here with Toneworks. We're going to be checking out Catalyst. Now, Catalyst is a new creative MIDI sequencer plugin for your DAW. It's a VST plugin that can output MIDI. It also functions as a VST host and is capable of loading plugins within the plugin. It's made up of a traditional step sequencer module, a Harmonizer module, an Arpeggiator, and a parameter sequencer, which works in conjunction with the VST host. And the modules can all be enabled simultaneously and feed into one another to create some pretty interesting results. So the basics are illustrated here on the block diagram. You'll see we have a sequencer which feeds into the harmonizer feeds into the arpeggiator, and the parameter sequencer links to our synth plugin that we have here. Clicking this allows you to load a plugin. I'll just grab an instance of Diva. Catalyst is always synced to a root key as well, which you can edit here, as well as a scale. You have a number of different options to choose from here. And lastly, we have some swing controls down at the bottom here. Now let's jump into the step sequencer. Some of the controls will be repeated between the step sequencer and the arpeggiator, so we'll cover this first. I've initialized the patch here and put in a really basic saw wave sound. I've also enabled the legato, mono legato mode and turned up the glide slightly so we can do some tied notes in the sequencer as well. And now the first thing that you need to be aware of is the increments that this can be adjusted in is not semitones, it's degrees of the scale. So within the A minor, we have 7 different degrees. Moving up a degree will take you to a B, and then a C, a D, an E, and so forth. Notice that we're missing all of the black notes there. If we were to drop this down to a G sharp, for example, you'll see that we now have G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp included in that scale. Let's come back to our A minor again. Now, because these are quantized to the scale, you can be quite heavy-handed when it comes to jotting down ideas here, because it's always going to sound correct. We'll just go and quickly draw in some notes. I'll come an octave up here. Let's go an octave down, and we can kind of just randomly select stuff here. Right, let's hit playback and hear what that sounds like. We can adjust this as we see fit. I like the sound of that. We've got some controls for the velocity as well. So if we enable Diva's velocity sensitivity on the envelope, come back again, we can draw in some velocity here. We've also got the gate times. If you want to tie notes together, just simply extend that past 100 and you'll see it ties and indicates that over there at the bottom. Lastly, you can turn notes on and off. We've got a master octave control here. Rate adjustments. We can change the direction of the sequence that's playing. Now, Brownian is a random algorithm. This basically has a chance to go left or right, so 50% chance to go left or right, and it kind of results in a sort of center point that moves slowly through, but random notes to either side. You can take a listen to what that sounds like. You can also go full random for sort of more generative content as well. And lastly, if we set this back to forward, it's very easy to get polyrhythmic sounding stuff as well, just by reducing the steps. Right, let's expand on the sequence that we have here. We can make this far more detailed as well by increasing this up to a 32-step sequence. Now, there's some handy editing controls that we have on hand here. If you click and drag around any of these steps, you'll see you can select them. We can then copy them and we can paste them. So let's paste these into the other remaining sections of this sequence. So now we've got duplicates of all of these. in our 32-step sequence. We could decide that we want to change all of these values at once. If you select them, you can just grab these and they'll adjust in relation to each other. You could do smaller selections as well. Now this is sounding a little bit boring as it is. Let's add in some fills at the end of this section and this section. We can do this using the randomization controls. If you see these little buttons on everything, this will result in randomized values. So let's say, for instance, we want to just randomize these last two steps here. Let's randomize the gate time, the velocity, and the pitch. And for the end of this, let's go and randomize those as well. And you could just click these until you find something that looks interesting. Let's play that back, and we've got a little bit of variation now. That sounds pretty good. We could take this further as well, and let's select this entire section. We'll copy this once again. We'll come into our pattern 2. Now you have 5 banks of different patterns here. Again, we'll set this up to 32 steps, and we can select this here and go and paste in our entire sequence. This one, let's do something different. We'll make this even more varied from the first one. Let's go ahead and just randomize this entire block. And we'll randomize this entire block. Now, when inputting notes into Catalyst, if the sequencer enable the notes function slightly different to how you think they may. I'm going to play around with just the white notes now. So you can see that is transposing the root of our step sequence up our scale. If I was to go and use the black keys, we can trigger the 5 pattern banks from there, and you can do that by sequencing these with notes inside of your DAW. Go ahead and play that back. And there you go. Right, let's check out some different material here. I'm going to reset all of these back to their original values, and let's turn this right down as well. We'll just come down to 4, I think, for this, and we're actually going to remove the sequencer from the chain here for starters. Let's just turn that off and come to our harmonizer. Now I want to use a different sound here. I'm going to leave Diva in this, and I'm going to show you how this works as just a plain MIDI plugin. Now if you are in a DAW other than Bitwig, you may need to route the outputs of this MIDI channel to the synth channel that you are going to be working with. In the case of Bitwig, it's very, very simple. You just drop in a synth after Catalyst. Catalyst will pass MIDI notes through. You'll see if I play something, you're getting an indication that there's an input at Tune 3 plugin here. And if we were to go and enable this, we now have Gene playing, and it's running through Catalyst. So let's turn on the harmonizer. Now, once again, the key input that you're using here is going to be in degrees. If I play a C, because we are in A minor, it's going to play our first chord of the scale, which is an A minor. So let's play our C. There you go. The black notes have no effect. But let's play the D. That's going to play the second chord in our scale. E will be our C major, F will be our D minor, and so forth. Now you can adjust the chord types here. We've got voicing that we can change. We can drop the second note, for example. Drop the second and third note. Drop 2 and 4. Now you'll see there is no fourth note yet, so what we can do is just dial up the density. Now we have a 4-note chord. We can go all the way up to 9 notes, which may seem excessive, but there's a very good reason for this being there as well. I'll show you that in just a second. Let's come back to our 4-note chords. Let's maybe make our C a major 7th. And we can invert this. Change our D minor as well. So as I said, all of these feed into one another. So our sequencer, our harmonizer, and our arpeggiator. Let's dial in our arpeggiator now. We'll turn this on. Chord memory is essentially a lock function. I'm going to disable that first, and I'm going to play our first chord in the scale. So let's dial up the density all the way. Like I said, this is handy when it comes to the arpeggiator. Now, the interesting thing with this arpeggiator, it's similar to the degrees input that you have with the step sequencer. However, this one works essentially by selecting the second note in the chord, which is +1. The third note in the chord will be +2, and so forth. So this allows you to kind of generate pretty interesting sounding arpeggiators by adjusting the order that the notes are played in. So we could say, yeah, let's go play the fourth note in the chord there instead. We'll come back to the second note, then play the third one over there. We'll go up to the seventh, and then maybe come back down to the fourth, and so on. We could also generate some more polyrhythmic sounding stuff. Of course, everything can be randomized here, and you'll notice these ones have now created some going down as well. This will actually subtract downwards an octave as well if you've got these negative numbers here. You can adjust the velocity again, obviously. Gate times. And once again, you can skip notes here too. You also have the same rate and direction controls that you had in the step sequencer. There's also the addition of a repeat function here, which will repeat notes in the arpeggiator. Let's turn that on. You get some pretty interesting results with this too. Cool, so lastly, let's just run back to our sequencer here. What we can do in this case is actually get all three of them to work together. We can trigger our chords directly from this as well. So let's say, for instance, if we wanted to just do a fairly simple chord progression here that'll just constantly play in the sequencer, we could set this right down to, let's say, half. And let's play around with the degrees again. So this would generate the third chord in our scale, this one the fourth, and so forth. Let's go with that. And notice it's playing only just the first few notes there now. That's because the gate time is down. So we can also play with the gates in this instance as well. Let's play the full one there. Let's play only just one or something there and do that. Just not the tie, just a full 100% on that one, and a full 100%. Right, lastly, let's just check out the parameter sequencer. I just disabled tune again, come back to our Diva plugin here. We can add in some automation to these sequences now if you are using the internal host here. By coming over to the parameter sequencer, we can go and turn this on. And you'll see this no mapping section here. You can just click that and it'll pull in the mapping from the hosted plugin. Let's say, for instance, we want to adjust the filter envelope decay time. You can also go in and adjust, let's say, the VCO for the filter, for example. So you can see pretty quick and easy to do some automation. We could also adjust the time signatures for these individually and also do some more polyrhythmic stuff too if you wanted to. Let's just say we bring this down to 5 steps only. And there you go. So very, very quick and easy to kind of get quite creative with this. It's a really nice source of inspiration, this, when you're a little bit stuck for ideas. Just dial in some random numbers, and because everything is conforming to your key and scale that you have in here, you can kind of come up with some very unusual and interesting ideas that might spark some inspiration for the tracks that you're working on. Hope you guys enjoyed this overview. Go grab Toneworks Catalyst, try out the demo, and have fun sequencing. I'll catch you guys soon. Cheers.